Well, Coach, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for joining us as we begin and continue to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. I know it started in the middle of September and we go through October 15th, but we at Behind the Whistle like to celebrate everyone all the time. So if you would, please tell us a little bit about yourself and we'll get started.
First of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be on, and you guys do a great job. I've always admired the work that you guys do for, minority professionals that are out there trying to get up to the next level. And you guys are in the front, leading the pack. And that's awesome because a lot of people are scared to do that. So, and I think we have to have people that are willing to go out there and do that and go against the norm. To give opportunities like myself, give guys like me an opportunity to become head coaches and be athletic directors and things like that. So, I'm coaching in my hometown now, and that's where I grew up in Comanche, Texas, so a little central Texas town. It was back when I was growing up, it was probably 60-40, 40% were Hispanic. Now it's kind of 50-50. It's kind of gotten half and half. And so I've kind of seen both sides of being able to be in the lower demographics, in that aspect of it. And now that we're about even, and I've coached in South Texas. So, I've seen where it's been 90% Hispanic and, 10% others. So I've seen both. And I think, being a coach that has helped me out in any situation. And wherever I go, I always feel it's important to treat everyone the same. And when I got this job, one of the questions, I guess one of the things that people were worried about was, how is he going to treat everyone? Is he going to treat someone differently? Is he going to be more Hispanic? And luckily I had some people that were on my side that wanted to get me hired, and they were like, he's a coach. He's going to coach kids the same way. It doesn't matter who they are. And that's exactly who I am. And I think my raising here in this community has kind of helped me in that aspect. Mm-hmm. Because I was raised by my grandparents from the age of 9. They didn't speak any English. And, I was going up through some growing pains, doing things that I probably shouldn't do. And a coach and a teacher changed my life. I had great teachers, and they were teachers. I didn't look at them as whether they were Hispanic or Anglo, they were just great teachers and great motivators, and they changed my life for the better. And that's why I became a coach. Mm-hmm. That's why I became a coach, and I never thought I would be the athletic director, head football coach at Comanche High School, to be honest with you, just because of what I've known about it, mm-hmm. Of the demographics and things like that. But I think people that were in the position, in the hiring position, understood that we needed someone like me to come in because the demographics have changed. Mm-hmm. They were seeing a drop off in our kids, and the Hispanic kids, they weren't participating. Mm-hmm. I think they took a chance, just like y'all do. They were in the front and making changes that probably people didn't expect. Mm-hmm. So I think, that's why I'm here. And that's why I coach, because of my teachers and my coaches that I had in college and in high school. And I think everyone's played a part in who I am right now. And that's where I'm at. And, I'm blessed to have grown up in a great community like Comanche.
That's awesome, Coach. And it's interesting that question would even be brought up, how mm-hmm. you would treat people, differently when, mm-hmm. I don't know if that question is always asked on the opposite side.
I know it's.
I mean, we've been in this profession for a while, and you are a phenomenal person. And I'm just to give people some context. Coach Escobar and I met when we were coaching at John Jay High School, and that's a very difficult community to work in. However, it is rich in history. Yes. It is, you've got kids that will run through the wall for you, whether that be in athletics or in the classroom. And I know you know this, Coach Escobar. So when you say that a teacher changed your life, and I think that's something that so many times we separate teacher and coach when mm-hmm. some of our greatest and best teachers are coaches.
Amen.
Because that's all that we're doing.
That's right. You're teaching every day. That's what coaching is teaching. If you're a teacher, you're going to be a great coach.
Exactly.
And, you know, and my coach, the guy that made a difference, Steve Gideon, he was a great teacher, and I had him as a teacher in class, and he did not let me slack off or anything. And he made me do things that I never thought I would do, you know, and in a classroom and on the football arena or whatever sport I was playing.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Northcutt, she filled out my college applications for me, and she told me, go to school, you know, go to school. And she would tutor me in the mornings for big tests, you know, make me get there early in the morning, you know, and at that age, you're not a morning person, but she would make me get up and get there and get tutored, and she would fill out my paperwork. And I'm telling you, she didn't have to do that. And I think that's why teaching is a calling,
mm-hmm.
because it's only the good ones make a difference.
Yes.
All about that, you know, because you make a difference. And when you were at Jay, you know, it's amazing how that happens. And your husband, Coach Goodlow, I mean, there is just, I think people are made for it, you know, mm-hmm. and you guys are made for it. And I think I was made for this, and because of those people that helped me.
Absolutely. Now, as a Hispanic coach, and we're seeing this a little bit more often as the organization has opened or started, the Texas High School the Hispanic Coaches Association.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us a little bit about, are you involved in that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I'm involved in it. And I tell you what, there was a couple guys out of Houston that started it, and they contacted me, asked me if I'd be interested. I said, for sure, I'd be interested. I think whether we want to admit it or not, or people want to admit it or not, there's challenges that we face as Hispanic coaches. And like you said about becoming head coaches at the 6A level, it's tough. There's not many of them. San Antonio is a prime example of the majority of the student body is Hispanic. And if you compare that to how many are head coaches and athletic coordinators or athletic directors, it's not even close. It doesn't match up. So these gentlemen and these coaches were athletic directors and coaches. They decided to get someone that represented us as Hispanics and help us, you know, get us out there, promote coaches, young coaches that are Hispanic coaches, give them an opportunity. And that's what I told them when I first did this. I said, you know what, this is awesome. I said, this is probably not going to benefit me, but it's going to benefit coaches after us, you know, young coaches that have an opportunity to make a difference and probably become those 6A head coaches, you know, and things like that. And I thought, to me, that was perfect. And that's what I wanted. I want to give back. So I was like, I'm all in on that. And what they do is, you know, and we allow anybody to be in our association. You know, there's Anglos, there's African-American, there's all kinds of gentlemen that are in our association. We don't discriminate. We want you to be a part of it. You know, we feel like there's something that we can give to help them relate to the Hispanic culture. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think that's a big thing. You know, they do a great job of having clinics, guys speaking, head coaches speaking that are Hispanics and talking about, you know, when you coach in a, you know, in a Hispanic dominant culture, you know, things you have to do. You know, you have to go make home visits. You got to go hit the parents, because that's where it's at. I mean, the ones are going to make the final decision if their kid gets to play or not. So, you know, we've had lectures on that, and I think that's been awesome. So I think, to me, that it's been a great association, and it's just growing. I mean, it's unbelievable how fast it's growing. And I tell you what they do is they recognize head coaches of the week, assistant coaches of the week. And, you know, it's a lot of young coaches I've never heard of, because when you think about it, there's a lot more Hispanic coaches than you think. There's a ton of them, and they're all over the state. So it's been really good. And I'm glad I'm glad those guys did that. You know, like I said, there's always got to be someone to start something like that and gets it going. And, you know, I admire those guys for doing that.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And I think what you said is very, very relevant in terms of being able to speak and relate to the Hispanic community. And you have to go into the home.
That's right.
Whether you can, whether there's a language barrier or not, if you make the effort, that family is going to welcome you in. Because you made the effort. That's
right. And they're family oriented, and that's what they talked about, being family oriented. And all they want to know is that you care about their kid, and you take care of them. That's all they want to know. And the minute you hit that, you strike that chord, and they're going to be all in with you, and they're going to be loyal, you know.
Exactly.
My little cousin, when I first coached here back in 2003, 2004, he was a sophomore or a freshman, and his parents didn't want him to play. And that's my uncle, my aunt and uncle. Mm-hmm. And they were just worried about him getting hurt or this and that. So I went and talked to him and spoke to him, and with a head coach. I took him with me and said, hey, let's go talk to him. So we went and talked to him, and he played, ended up being a phenomenal football player. Tore his ACL the last game, in the third round of the playoff game, he tore his ACL. Well, he's in the locker room, and they're carrying him out, and his parents are there, and they go up to my boss, the head coach, and they just shake his hand and tell him thank you for everything. You know, I mean, that was a life-changing moment for me. I was like, wow, you know, and 2 years ago, they didn't even want to have anything to do with him. But the minute he went into their home, it changed. It changed. And they were, and he would go home and say how great it was and how much he loved his coach. Well, when it was all said and done, regardless whether he was hurt or not, they went and shook his hand, told him thank you. They appreciated him. And to me, that kind of, you know, I get real emotional, you know, like that. And I was just, man, it hit me that night. I was like, that's what it's all about, you know, because he did make a difference. And I think we can do that.
Yes. And it was interesting, Coach. It was 2 weeks ago. We played against Laredo United South. Mm-hmm. And I happened to sit on the Laredo United side because there was more places to sit there. Mm-hmm. And I was watching and observing all the coaches. Mm-hmm. I don't think people understand. I mean, football in itself is a different language. If you don't know it, right? Mm-hmm. But to see those coaches translate that into Spanish and talk to those young men, explaining the game in Spanish, I don't think that people recognize and acknowledge the power that our Hispanic coaches or anyone that speaks Spanish and does that translation. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know you referenced being in the Valley and also, you know, even at Jay, because we had a lot of people that spoke Spanish. What was that like?
You know, it's kind of neat. You know, I don't know if I appreciated my Hispanic culture when I was a kid as much as I should. You know, I think growing up in a dominant Anglo community, you kind of don't. You know, even though my grandparents didn't speak any English, you know, I spoke Spanish in the home, so I was still pretty fluent, pretty good at it. And then when I went to coach in the Valley, it really came handy, you know, because those kids, they relate to that, you know, and like I would say familia on three, and they loved that, you know. And I had some kids that couldn't. I had a kicker that came from Mexico, and he didn't know, his parents didn't know, you know, they didn't want him to, and I said, he's just going to kick. And so I went and talked to him because he was a soccer kid. So I went and talked to him. I said, he's just going to kick. And he wanted to kick, right? So, and I spoke to him, and luckily I had Hispanic coaches that were able to speak to him as well. So we spoke to him in Spanish while he was learning English. Well, he ended up learning English pretty good. The kid was a phenomenal kicker. He went to, they won a national championship. Where is it at? In East Texas. They're the Lions. Commerce. And he set records. Like, he had the scoring record there. And this kid was a part of our National Honor Society, graduated top 10%. And whenever they were calling me about him, they said, Coach, he didn't have any papers. And I said, what? He speaks fluent English. He's been here. You know. Well, so they figured out how to do it. So they picked him up. I took him to the bus station. He had one bag. That was it. They picked him up, took him, and the rest was history. And he's in the record books. But being able to speak to him and his parents in Spanish was key, because he would have never played if somebody would have gone over there and not spoken to them in you know, in their language, where they could understand that, hey, we're going to take care of him, you know. And, you know, when I was in Carrizo, we'd always say con ganas or con, you know, that's what they said. That's what they want, you know, and they embrace that. And I think you have to be able to embrace that culture. And I think if you're able to speak Spanish in a community like that, those people are going to be loyal to you, and they're going to back you up. And I think that's huge. And seeing it firsthand with our kicker, you know, I mean, that was unbelievable. And I talked to his coaches a couple of years ago, and they're like, Coach, he's such a great kid. And I was like, no doubt. And just think, this kid might have not had this opportunity, you know. And he's getting his master's. I mean, He's phenomenal, but I think if we weren't able to speak the language, that would have never happened. That it would have been closed. So I think you got to be able to speak. And I think it's very important. I mean, you want those people to, if you want the parents to let you play, you got to be able to speak to them and relate to them and understand, I'm the same as you are, and I speak the same language. And even if you're not Hispanic, but if you try, that goes a long ways.
Yes. Now, just a couple more questions. What are some words of wisdom that you would like to give to future coaches, future Hispanic coaches that are in this profession, or that are questioning whether or not they should get in? Because when we look at numbers, we don't see a lot of us that are in positions of leadership like yourself as a head coach, athletic director, and that's just the reality when we talk about numbers. What kind of advice would you give them?
This is what I told a couple coaches the other day that were young coaches that I still communicate. I mentor a couple, and that's what the association, they set us up with a couple coaches and we mentor them, and we talk to them about once a week or, twice a month, as much as we can. And a couple coaches had the same question. Coach, do you think we'll ever have an opportunity to be head coaches at 6A or in the big city and things like that? And I said, you never know unless you try. And no matter what, don't ever give up. Somebody's got to break that door open, and it might be you. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing it the right way. Keep loving kids up no matter what. Keep loving them up, coaching them hard, and eventually that opportunity is going to come, but keep doing things the right way and keep trying to learn. I think that's the most important thing. And I think the relationship aspect, and I think that's what we're good at. I think minorities are really good at building relationships. I think we know the struggle. And when you know the struggle and you see kids that are struggling, you're able to relate with that, and I think that's where we're difference makers, and I think because we see it and we understand, we have a lot more empathy, I believe, and that's just the way we're a nurturing culture. And I think that's a big thing for us. Are you there? Did I lose you? Okay, there you go. Gotcha.
There we go.
But yeah, so I think, I think we're able to relate to kids. And that's why I tell them, I said, no matter what, even if it doesn't happen, because I thought it would never happen either. And that's why I went down south. Because I thought, well, I'm going to have a better opportunity to be a head coach down south, because I was in West Texas. And I looked around, and there weren't many minority coaches in that time. I don't know if there were any. There might have been one, and he was at Big Spring or at Andrews. And Jeff Cordell, and he's at Crane now. And I thought, I got to move south if I want to be a head coach, or, so that's why I started heading south a little bit more. And, once that opportunity came, I think the hardest thing was, you always want to be there. You just don't know what to expect when you get there. And then when you get there, you think you have it all laid out, but it really doesn't happen that way. And I think that's why we're able to overcome it, because we've been through that struggle. And we understand, just keep chopping wood, keep going forward, and eventually good things are going to happen. And I think that's my message to those guys. Just keep doing what you're doing. Just keep making a difference, and eventually that opportunity is going to come. Somebody's going to break that door open for us.
Oh yeah. I believe that. I believe that 100%. And I think that as we're putting this information out for people to just acknowledge and recognize, hey, we're here. We're not going anywhere.
No, I know. Hey, we got to keep pushing. I mean, eventually it's gonna. I mean, that's what There's been times, I tell you, when I was assistant coach, and I thought, well, maybe I won't be a head coach anymore. Maybe that's not going to happen. And my wife is the best person I could ever marry. I mean, because she would tell me, you better stop that. She would be on my tail. Get up. You tell these kids to overcome. You better, and she was on me about it, and without her, I probably would have stopped and said, I'm just going to be a coordinator and go on. She pushed me in. So I think everyone needs that. So my words of advice would be just keep plugging. It's going to happen. Just keep believing, keep dreaming, and it's going to happen.
Oh, yeah. And then one last question. What is one of your favorite traditions in the Latino tradition, Hispanic, whichever term? I know people use a lot of different terms, but what is your favorite tradition?
We have, and it's kind of been different here, and we try to do it a little bit more now, but because our kids didn't understand. We do Tejano Tuesday. So in the weight room, we do Tejano Tuesday, and we turn it up and we get going. And I've got a lot of Hispanic kids here, and I'm telling you, it's gonna change. It's gonna be about 60-40 by the time I'm done here in the next 5 years. It's gonna be. I'm not saying I'll be done here in 5 years, but next 50-40, it's gonna be 60-40. And I'm telling you, those kids and the Anglo kids, they get mixed up and they go and they're dancing. So to me, I love that, because when you turn on the cumbias and all that, everybody loves the beat. Everybody loves the rhythm. And it's not like a certain group likes rap, you know what I mean? It's everybody loves Tejano music and they get after it. And that's my favorite tradition. And we do that we work out in the mornings and they turn it up, and I love it. And the kids love it, and everybody's starting to buy into it. And we did that at Carrizo. We started doing it at Carrizo, and it was a lot different than the kids were, they were dancing, getting after, now these kids start doing it. So it's slowly starting to get there. So
that's awesome. And speaking of Tejano music, Coach, on Sunday, I was a part of a brunch, and Shelly Lattes was on. And she sang, she serenaded us, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is Shelly Lattes.
That's big
crazy.
Time.
Yes, it was. And I was just so honored to be in that space. And I think you said it earlier, like you, I didn't necessarily recognize and honor and respect my culture, because I was a part of the majority in the valley.
Yes.
And everyone looked like me.
Yes. So yes.
So I assumed everywhere was just like me.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? My wife, so my wife's from Edinburgh, right? All Hispanic, right? There's a few, but anyway, so we go to, I take her to, when I first met her, we go to Looking Bot. We're driving through to come to Comanche, and we stop and just walk around, and we're listening to people play guitar. And she looks around and she goes, we're the only Hispanics here? And I said, oh yeah, I didn't even realize it, because I grew up in a different environment than she did, and I'd been coaching out West, and she grew up where it was just, and she never left the Valley until then, and so, and so I started thinking about that. And, when I got older, I started appreciating my culture a lot more and what we bring to the table. I mean, we have so many neat traditions that, it's unbelievable, and I think my stepsister, she appreciated a lot more than I did at that time growing up. But, it was weird because we went in different circles. Like, she didn't play sports. I did. She hung around with the kids that didn't play sports. Well, a lot of Hispanic kids didn't play sports. We didn't have Hispanic coaches. I mean, my point is, we didn't have Hispanic coaches. So we did not know, what, if there was a such thing as a Hispanic coach. So a lot of the Hispanic kids didn't play. I was one of the few. So, I was considered kind of an outsider to the Hispanics, and then I started realizing when I got out, it's like, what, we have a great culture and I need to embrace it, and, it just happened. And then I started thinking about all the kids that kind of missed out, because they didn't have someone like me as a coach. And when I came back to coach here, a lot more Hispanic kids came out. Kids that didn't speak English came out and played. And I can think of one, Jose Guerrero. I had to go, we went to his house and I talked to his parents. I mean, I was a first-year coach, and they let him play, and I was the one that had to coach him because nobody else knew how to speak Spanish. So I think that's part of the deal. And then you start realizing, wait a minute, there needs to be more guys like me. There needs more people like me, coaching our kids. And so it's just something that happens. I guess when you get older, you realize and you start appreciating it a little bit more. And I do now. And that's why I want to help a lot of those Hispanic coaches to strive and to become head coaches and athletic directors.
Yes. So I just want to say thank you, Coach Escobar. It was a phenomenal interview. You're someone that we call family. We know that if we need anything, we can call you up.
Yes, ma'am.
But we're honored to celebrate you, celebrate all of your successes. And I know you're deep in the season.
Yes, ma'am.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck. And we'll soon.
Yeah, and thank you guys. Like I said, y'all do a great job. Y'all do a phenomenal job. Y'all are like everywhere and doing an awesome job. And y'all are like family. Coach Goodlow was always so good to me, and we just had a great bond. I love him to death. He's just someone that really, I don't know, he just made an impact on me. And every time he'd tell me something, I always carried. He had always had a little tidbit to tell me. So he was always good to me, and I do appreciate you guys. And y'all are like family. And keep doing what you're doing because you're making a difference.
Excellent. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.